Alright, so this chapter is not truly indicative of its title, Jews, Muslims, and Christians, the name of God, Psilocybin. It's more a little bit about Jewish history, and then it dives into their neighbors, the Hittites, the Pythagoreans, and then up to the Buddhists in the East. So we're going to have to jump around a little bit, but sit tight. This is the hand of God, and we are showing you the evidence to support a belief system. This is a Jewish breastplate. They wore, the high priest wore, note that, high priest, wore these breastplates, and on them they had depictions of these seashells, which is the scallop shell with the denotation, the curls of the mushroom, showing its really psilocybin being symbolized as the scallop shell, because it wasn't something you could speak about openly. You had to kind of keep it a secret, keep it veiled. It was the name of God to the Jews, and to the rest of the world it was, they just abused mushrooms, which can happen when you're using them purely for sexual purposes or when you're worshiping false gods. I know that's tough. Anyway, here's the Ten Commandments, and here's a hand symbol down below the Ten Commandments, where the Ten Commandments came from, probably, most likely. And here the hands are shown. In the inverse is the psilocybin mushroom, being made in the shape and image of a cap with a stem. Also, on closer inspection, you'll see that each of these two scallop shells has the pearl at its base, the pearl of greatest worth. Scallops typically don't have pearls, so that is a unique identifier as the substance or subject of which Jesus spoke when he said in the Bible, the pearl of greatest worth, when it's found, a man sells everything he has in order to obtain it, or the field where it's growing. Alright, so here's the hand of God again. You can see the mushroom pretty clearly. And this is a Psilocybe cubensis, which is the most common of the mushrooms, Psilocybe. Here is the Torah. Let's see if we can't scroll in here. It's always a little tricky to get this thing to scroll. Well, I'll just describe it to you as best I can. Here is a poppy, and here are the poppy capsules. Hopefully the screen's a little bigger for you. These capsules are the pointer sticks for the Torah scrolls, and they are opium poppies with mushroom caps on top. And these would be mushrooms. Here are some coins showing the poppy, and another one showing the mushroom coming up out of the Grail cup. So if the Torah was written about these things, then this religious text that we've got, the Bible, is coming from a psilocybin user's background. They made contact with God, that's how, and then they recorded what he said, and that's why it's an inerrant book. Alright, so there were some wicked kings in Israel. One of them was named Ahab, and Ahab had a palace in which this piece of art was placed. It's an ivory, what's called an ivory diptych, and it shows the Sphinx here, which is Phoenician and Egyptian, and beneath it the lilies, or the mushrooms, the psilocybin mushrooms. Here are some capitals from Israel, and they have the caps. I think you've probably seen this if you've seen any of my other shows. I show that circumpunct is the cap of the psilocybin mushrooms, particularly Psilocybin mexicanae, which was common in this in the region of Mesoamerica, whereas it probably would have been cubensis in Israel, since the pictures in Rome look like cubensis mushrooms. Although there are 180 species, so if it blues, then you've got your Smurf, which is another whole can of worms. The Gargamel was a alchemist, and he was after the Smurfs to convert them to gold. So after mushrooms in order to make snake potions or snake medicines. Here's the Hittite culture, the neighbors. They were basically into the mushroom too. You can see this seal and the impression of mushrooms on the side with the wing and the central piece of a mushroom shown from the upside down angle with the spokes or gills showing. Here's a tree of life with the capstone set in it. Which I know you can't see that, but it is common that the capstone was known to be the mushroom. And this is the lion drinking bowl out of which they would have consumed psilocybin. Here's another Hittite piece of architecture. It's got the lion, a symbol of God, and the mushroom. And it's got the honeysuckle, which is just a plant that's likened unto the scallop shell in its pattern. So psilocybin, and the poppy on the right, which is called the acanthia leaf. Alright, more. This guy's holding what looks like a psilocybin mushroom or a lily of some sort. And close-up shows that these are mushroom scrolls down here. The lightning god, and he's also wearing primordia-like hat, much like Pharaoh. This is the primordia-like shape that he's wearing. The Phrygians, or Pythagoreans, this is their symbol, which is kind of like the Liberty Cap. It is called the Liberty Cap, and they were all wearing it. And they lived up near Cappadocia, so they would have been privy to the mushroom-shaped monasteries there before the Christians arrived. This is Egypt and the Pythagoreans. This is a symbol for bread, as I mentioned before. So that bread symbol is where you would place the mushrooms, and you would squash them with a stone, and the juice would run into this basin here, and the particles would stay back here, whereas the pure liquid would flow out here. So you could have mushroom juice, which, if you think about eating mushrooms, you could maybe eat 10, 15 mushrooms or 10, 15 grams. But drinking a glass of this juice made from 100 mushrooms is a whole nother level. And it's not toxic. Alright, so Buddhism. This is a Buddhist monk and a young boy collecting psilocybin mushrooms. So, it says 5th century BC, but it's obviously more modern than that. Here follows a rough history of Buddhism and its association with the entheogenic medicines. Buddhism's history will follow as a single body of information. Well, that's good. Good for us. There we have the acorn again, one of the symbols of the mushroom. It has a lot. I know this is a lot to remember. So just take the basics, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the tree of life, and the concept of do unto others as you want done to yourself, and love God with everything in you. Here's it's called stupa, and on it is a big golden mushroom. That's where Buddha reached enlightenment. Here's kind of a mushromonic temple or pillar. This whole temple is made up of poppy capsules. You can see the whole top of it is covered with these poppy capsules. And if you flip them the right direction, they're upside down here, so that they're hidden in plain sight. It is a poppy that's being displayed. So, sources of nirvana. The wheel of Dharma. A Buddhist with a mushroom in his hand. It's just upside down, so you can't recognize it. A Buddhist with a poppy in his hand. So these things were popular. Now this is a whole different group of Buddhism and Hinduism, I believe. It could be Jainism. Certainly the Jainist statue has a vine that's crawling up it. But the third soma in India was the morning glory, the Hawaiian baby wood rose, which is called Agrivia nervosa, I believe. Something like that. And here its tendril is showing between these evil eyes, and the third eye is depicted there as a little dot. So they were using the morning glory in this culture. They were also using the Psilocybins, the Buddhists, early Buddhists. You see the gold and white mushrooms with their stalks below. These are just a dead giveaway. Those look like mushroom trees, and that's the tree of life under which Buddha reached enlightenment. He called it the Bodhi tree, and these are basically places where people are buried. So they're burying themselves underneath the symbol of the tree of life. The Masons do this too with the pillar that they erect over their tombs. So if you go to a graveyard, you'll see both crosses, and you'll see the pillar or Cleopatra's needle, what are called obelisks, of course, and that represents the tree of life. That's why they're putting it there. They may not remember it. They may think of it as the missing word of Freemasonry, the lost word, or the logos, which I'm bringing back to you and saying it is Christ's body. Alright, so this is another Buddhist, and where the third eye is, you have a mushroom cap. And we'll probably close on this next slide for today. This is a bluing Buddhist with a great big mushroom above his head. I don't know how much more obvious it could be. Alright, thank you for paying attention, and we'll see you next time.